Through interviews from London to Los Angeles, I hope this podcast will inspire you to embrace your wild side. To keep up with my wild adventures, follow me at SusieLindau.com. You can also find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Enjoy the show. Hi, this is Susie Lindau from Susie Lindau's Wild Side, and I'm here and I'm going to interview Jim Cram today, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his wild side. So tell me, Jim, what does wild mean to you?
Something that's unusual, especially thrilling, or the word unusual, I think, is part of it. Yeah, that's what I would think.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, pretty unusual things that kind of strike you as out of the ordinary, or, you know, and I would imagine that you've had a lot of things that have struck you as out of the ordinary since you are how old, Jim?
101.
101. Wow, that is amazing.
Born July 3, 1916, and my dad tells me that when I was born, of course, in 1916, there was no incubators or anything for anybody. But when I was born, I was a blue baby, and I wasn't getting oxygen. And of course, there was a doctor present, but all they had was aspirin. And my grandma was there, though, and she recognized that I wasn't getting air, and she got out some whiskey and gave me a shot of whiskey, and it's lasted now 101 years. So I can say that's my wild side to start with.
Wow.
I started out with whiskey before I had milk.
That is amazing. Not too many babies probably started off that way. That is amazing.
Not live.
No, that's a crazy start to your life. But you've obviously had a very healthy life, and you know, here you are at 101. You probably have had a few wild things happen to you through your life. Did you ever go on any unusual traveling excursions or anything like that?
Well, we did quite a bit of traveling later on, but I would like to mention that we grew up in western Kansas, and one of the things that was significant to us in those days was the Dust Bowl days. And it wasn't unusual to have it completely black at noon from the dust. And then when the dust would clear up, maybe in 2 or 3 hours, the roosters would come out and crow. They think that's been another day.
Wow.
But that was the start with the Dust Bowl days, and of course that was Prohibition, which was unusual too at that time. And then advanced on through the schools. The military was the next thing that was significant. I was drafted in the first group out of Cheyenne County. 16 men were drafted, and I was in the first group that drafted. And I was sent to Camp Robinson, Arkansas, and this is a year, almost a year before Pearl Harbor. So when we were drafted, we were told we'd just be in a year. And, of course, December 7th changed all that. And when the Pearl Harbor event took place, we were put on troop trains and sent to California immediately because the Japanese had sunk our Navy, and actually the Japanese could have come into California without much trouble. So they sent troops out there right away to prevent that. And then, of course, I went to officer candidate school and got to be a lieutenant in field artillery. And I started out training with colored troops, which is a little unusual. In those days, colored troops could not have black officers. They had to be white officers. And, of course, President Truman changed that. That no longer is a problem. And then in later life, I worked for the Bureau of Reclamation. I worked on dams. We built Bonnie Dam in eastern Colorado. And then I went over to Trenton Dam, which is just inside Colorado, inside Nebraska from Kansas. straight north of my hometown, and was up at lived in McCook, Nebraska for 5 years, working on Trenton Dam, and then.
What did you do when you worked on the dam? What did you have to do?
Inspect the work that's been designed.
Oh, I see.
It's the main thing. Part of the Trenton project was relocating the railroad 20 miles, the Burlington Railroad, and I was more involved with that than I was the dam, with relocating the railroad at this time.
Oh my gosh.
And then when that was completed, I was sent to an irrigation project at Sargent, Nebraska, which is up in the sandhills near Burwell. And when we moved up there, it's a little village of about 1,000, and the roads weren't paved yet at that time. And we stayed in a hotel that was uncanny because it just had one bathroom for the whole hotel.
Oh my gosh.
And,
that must have been a little crazy in the
then
mornings.
when our van arrived, we had got a house, and when our van arrived, my wife said, "Don't unload, I'm not staying.
Oh.
I can't stay here. This is just beyond my comprehension."
Oh.
But actually, we did stay, and we enjoyed staying there very much, and got good friends, and remarkable to be there at Sargent. And I had an uncle, a great uncle that lived in Burwell, and we got to see him, and that was a special event. And then I had a chance to come to the office in Denver and work in contract administration work, and so we took that and moved to Lakewood then, out near Federal Center in the fall of 1956. And so we've been there now over 60 years, and I've retired in 1920. And
wow. So did you ever, when you had your children, was that kind of a wild event for you when you started having children?
We got to Joanne, well, in 1943. Well, actually, I was discharged from the Army in 43 because of health problems.
Health problems, and here you are. Who would have thought?
And Joanne was born in 43, and then moved to Wichita, worked on the B-29 program.
Wow.
And
what did you do for that program?
worked on the equipment, what they call the equipment part of the B-29.
Wow.
And then when that closed, I finished up my degree in civil engineering.
And that's how you got into the dam building and all of that.
While we still lived in Wichita, I finished my degree. And about that time, the Bonnie Dam project was opened up, and we decided to move to take care of that because the Boeing work had slowed off because the layoffs of the B-29 program was canceled. Mm-hmm. And some of my friends did stay with B-29. I often think maybe I should have, but I don't regret. The Bureau work has been really interesting for me.
Oh, good.
So we built Bonnie Dam, which is the government campus in St. Francis, my hometown. And while there in 49, John was born. And then when the Trenton project opened up, we lived in McCook 5 years, Nebraska, and that's where Jerry was born.
Wow. So did you move around a lot then? Is that when the kids were younger? Then did you move around a lot then with your jobs and things? Yeah.
And so.
So how did your wife like that? All that moving. Well, she had good accommodations.
Real good.
She did.
Really did.
She was a trooper.
And then we got to Lakewood. The kids liked the schools there, and in fact, Joanne was in junior high, weren't you? Mm-hmm. Junior high, and went to Lakewood High School, and John then, of course, went to the schools, Lakewood schools, and Lakewood High School, and Jerry did too.
Wow,
and Joanne got her PhD in astrophysics, and John got his degree in medicine, and Jerry is a thanatologist. And the thanatologists are usually hired by big hospitals to play the harp for people that are very ill or actually in the process of dying.
Oh.
So that's quite a interesting story that she has to tell of people in the hospital and dealing with them in their final days.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's a special gift.
Yeah,
To
special
do that.
gift.
So, what do you think? What do you attribute your children and all of their great gifts and talents and things? Do you think you raised them in a certain way that
Well, we
had them
certainly
stretch?
been fortunate that way. They've all
Yes.
been very successful. I haven't had to bail any of them out of jail.
Well, that's a good thing.
So that's kind of wild because a lot of people
Yeah.
don't get by with that.
Right, exactly. And so, have you ever traveled anywhere that was,
Well,
on a vacation
yes,
or any?
After I retired, we went to the Oberammergau Passion Play in Oberammergau, Germany, in
Oh my gosh!
1920, and that was
1960?
60.
60.
that was interesting.
Yeah.
I mean 1980. What am I saying?
Sure.
1980.
Uh-huh.
Saw that and traveled to I was in London a while and the Oberammergau and then in Paris a while. In fact, that picture was painted
Oh,
of Joe
that's beautiful.
in Paris
Wow.
in 1980.
Wow.
And we got down to Italy and saw the Colosseum there. And I understand the Colosseum is being refurbished
Oh.
so that the stages will work now
Wow.
in the same way that they did during the days of the Romans.
That's pretty
It's
amazing.
interesting to see that.
Right?
They had a stage they could raise, and the gladiators would fight to their death, and they'd get all bloody, and then they'd lower the stage and bring the next stage for the
Oh my
feeding the
gosh.
Christians to the lions. And
Can you even imagine that? Wow. I'm glad I was born in today's crazy times. So, did you ever think of yourself as a risk taker? Have you ever done anything like?
well, I took up flying.
Oh, you did.
I
You're
got my
aviator?
pilot's license, in fact,
Oh,
my
you
commercial
did. Wow.
single-engine pilot's license, and that was quite an experience. We did that during the days that we worked at Bonnie Dam.
Oh.
And in fact, my dad had bought a little airplane, a little Cessna, and so all my two brothers also learned to fly. And they had my brother Bob lived in Larned, was in a flying club that had a 180 Cessna, and my brother Richard that lived in St. Francis. Incidentally, my two brothers were MDs. He got a
gosh.
Cessna beach. Beach. It was like the Bonanza, only it was not quite as expensive as the Bonanza. But he flew it a lot, even flew it down to the Bahamas.
Oh my gosh.
And he did more flying than the rest of us did. But my dad learned to fly too at age 60.
Oh my
which is pretty
gosh.
good.
Wow. Did you learn to fly through the military, or did you?
No, I was
You did it on
after-
your own.
On the GI Bill after I got out of the Army.
After you were done, and was that before you got your engineering degree, or
No, after
that was after that
my
too?
engineering degree.
Oh my gosh! So what compelled you to want to take to the skies? You just wanted to see what it felt like.
One of the things I wanted to mention was Lindbergh, I think, is one of the greatest men of all history. Charles Lindbergh, and the reason we know so much about Lindbergh is that he came out to Bird City, Kansas, which is just 15 miles north of St. Francis, where I grew up. And he was hired by a man by the name of Brandy Rogers to fly his Jenny. In those days, you could buy a World War I Jenny for $200. If it had a new engine, it would just cost $500.
Oh my gosh!
And so Brandy Rogers had bought one, and it so happened he hired Lindbergh to fly it for him. And in those days, they did what we call barnstorming. They would go to neighboring towns and give people rides for like $5. You get a ride in an airplane for $5. And Lindbergh was, he would do wing walking, he did parachuting, and to get his, to be sure he had enough fuel, he'd tie 5-gallon cans of gasoline on the wings and fly to the next town so he'd have gasoline.
Oh my
And of course,
gosh.
that's about as risky as anything in the world could be, to fly an old Jenny with gasoline tied to the wings.
Oh my gosh!
And Lindbergh got by with it.
Wow.
But he was an amazing man. Absolutely amazing. And then he got into the flying the mail service, and I think even twice he had to bail out because of bad weather and parachuted and saved. He got down and he finally had the chance to fly the Spirit of St. Louis to Paris.
Oh, right.
And that was a big thing in those days. The man in Paris was offering $25,000, which would be like $25 million today, to fly an airplane to Paris from New York. And Lindbergh developed the Spirit of St. Louis by people in St. Louis, and he got by with it. And he didn't have a radio. He had a compass, but that's all he had. Had nothing else to help him.
Wow.
And he managed to get to Paris, and that made him enormously famous immediately.
Right.
And later on, we find that Lindbergh was very successful as a civilian pilot in World War II. And
amazing. Did you ever get to meet him or see
the
him
thing
fly?
about Lindbergh is after he completed his flight to Paris, he came back to the U.S. and made a goodwill tour of the U.S. And so he let the people in Bird City know that he was going to fly over Bird City on his goodwill tour from Omaha to Denver.
Oh, yeah.
And so we knew about it. I was 10 years old. And we went over to Bird City and stood on the football field and spelled welcome. And he flew over us in the Spirit of St. Louis. And he flew down real low over us. He stuck his hand out, waved to us.
Oh, my
He
gosh.
circled us several times. And it probably was more than 100 feet, but it seemed to me like he was right down over us.
Oh, my gosh. How fantastic.
Then we flew on to Denver. But that was a tremendous experience
So,
to see Lindbergh himself
oh, yeah.
fly over us.
Wow. So that must have really influenced your...
Yes, always interested in airplanes.
Inspired you to
We made
get your
lots of model
license.
airplanes.
Oh, that's
And of
great.
course, then we got a chance to fly. We learned to fly.
Wow.
And my dad was that way too. He was very interested in airplanes. In fact, this airplane on the wall here, you'll see it. I'll show it to you. Flew into St. Francis in 1916, a Wright Flyer, and I was 3 months old
Oh, my gosh.
when it was there, and of course I saw it, but I don't remember seeing it.
Right?
But my dad took the picture of it,
Wow.
and I have the picture of that Wright
So
Flyer.
that's been a big part of your life.
Big part of my life.
Do you fly anymore, or are you done
Oh,
flying?
I don't
You're
fly
done with
anymore.
that? Yeah.
And
You're
my
just-
dad flew till he was in his 80s,
Oh,
but
my
he had
gosh.
to quit flying because he ground looped a CA plane through a fence.
Oh,
And FAA made him took his license away from him.
oh my gosh.
So he wanted to try to renew his license, and he tried to, but of course they wouldn't renew his license.
Darn, you have to have good eyesight, I guess,
Yeah.
huh? Yeah. I have heard something about that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So if there was something that you would still want to do that's considered wild, what would that be? Like if you can
Well,
have anything that you have on the horizon that you still would like to do?
I think, of course, I would like to have done more travel, but we did get to go to Japan when Joanne was
You
in
went to
Japan for a year and spent
Wow.
18 days in Japan and
Oh,
got
that's
to ride the bullet
fantastic.
trains and see the museum in Hiroshima.
Oh my
And,
gosh. What year was that?
That was in 1990,
1990.
and that was a great experience too, to be in Japan
Oh, yeah.
and see the Hiroshima and the bullet trains. And Joanne had a great year in Japan, and in fact, now, of course, the big thing was this eclipse.
Oh my gosh.
I wanted to mention the eclipse, and
Yes.
actually, one of the workers that Joanne knew while she worked in here had come out especially to be with Joanne and see the eclipse. A man from Japan and his wife.
Oh my goodness.
And so they were with us, and we drove to Grand Island, Nebraska, to watch the eclipse. And I think probably of all my experiences, it would be one of the biggest. The eclipse is just unbelievable. It ranks with seeing Lindbergh.
Yeah, that was pretty remarkable.
You sit there, you're out in the field, and everybody's there with their cameras and taking pictures, and you wait for the eclipse to take place, and it gradually it closes over, and finally there's just a little sliver of light left, and everything's fine. And when that sliver closes, you're just stunned because the air suddenly drops 20 degrees, and a strong breeze comes through, and you're just feel like you're watching creation. It's just a staggering a feeling. No way to explain it.
Yes.
But all at once, the thing, when it goes, boy, it's just unbelievable.
I felt like it was so still. Everything just stopped for those 2 minutes, and the air was so still. It was very otherworldly, I thought, and we were still at only 94% here.
Yes.
But the full eclipse is supposed to be stunning. And
Did you feel the cold air?
Yes, it did
did
drop.
that.
It did drop like 15 degrees or something.
That really kind of gets you the cold air going with it, with the black, when the black light come in, and here's this cold air. And you think, my gosh, what's going on?
Well, kind of like your story about the Dust Bowl, is that some people talked about how the crickets started to chirp because they thought it was nighttime when the eclipse happened. So that was pretty interesting. So I have to ask you, because you're 101 years old, you have to give us, really young people, all your tips and tricks on having a good long life. Like, do you have any, inspiring words or any tips you can give us?
The main thing I think in life is to want to live. That's a big part of it. And then I think you got to use good judgment. I never smoked, and the main reason I never smoked is because the high school coach wouldn't let you play any sports if you smoked.
Oh.
And so I learned early that the coach didn't think smoking was good for you, and I never got involved with smoking, so I think that's been a big help. I think smoking can damage your lungs, and a lot of people smoke anyway, even though they know that. But that was a factor, I think, and a lot of it's luck. As you go down the road of life, you come to a lot of forks in the road, and Yogi Berra says that, and you don't know which fork to take. And sometimes you take the right fork, and sometimes you don't. And you can take a fork where there's going to be a hurricane, or you can take a fork. And automobiles, too, are a big factor. I've been in 2 automobile accidents where the cars were seriously damaged. One that was totaled, but I wasn't injured except my hand got crushed on the car that was totaled, and I had to have surgery on my hand. But otherwise, I've got luck on the automobiles and the airplanes, too. I know there's been chances with the airplane that you could have got into real trouble, and you get a little careless, and you just do that. But it's you got to live, and you say, I hope you just get by. That's all.
That's right. You have to take some chances. I guess you have to live. You have to step out the door.
Yes.
Do you have any routines or things that you like to eat or drink, or anything that you could share?
Of course, I would like to be heavier, and I've been so thin my whole life, and I don't know why. I've never been able to gain much, but I think it's been my grandma's whiskey probably that did that. But anyway, I've never been able to gain weight like I wanted to. But
that's kind of everybody else's opposite problem. But
I've survived cancer, several cancers, and
what cancers did you have?
Prostate cancer and a melanoma on my nose.
Wow.
That practically removed my nose.
Yeah, it looks good though.
They got it rebuilt pretty well.
Yeah.
But things like that. I had some little cancer on my ear that wasn't too bad, but had it removed, and so there's a constant problems, health problems to be aware of, and that's part of keeping going is to be aware of your health problems.
Take care of yourself.
Take care
Go
of
in for
yourself.
those routine examinations. Oh, that's cool. So do you have a special treat that you like ice cream at night or something?
I tell you, right, of recent years, I like what they call Ensure.
Oh, Ensure. That's
Ensure.
supposed to be really good for
I always
you.
have a
Yeah.
glass of Ensure every night. Yes.
Oh, you do? Wow.
Uh-huh.
That's like a huge shake full of vitamins. I think it's got everything in it. Oh, that's good.
I feel
Excellent.
like that's important. That Ensure has been important to me.
Yeah. And maybe having great relationships with family.
Yeah.
His
great-
daughter, Joanne, is here.
Great
and-
family.
Yeah.
Just can't believe how fortunate we've been with the kids.
Yeah.
All of them. Only one of the grandchildren had a problem. That was Cassandra. She was born premature
Oh.
and had to be in an incubator 6 months.
Oh my gosh.
3 months was it? And she's really doing fine now, but she's
Oh,
been a
good.
concern.
Yeah.
But she's got to be a minister, an ordained minister,
What?
in Unitarian, the Universal Church.
Oh my gosh.
And
when
she
did you
now
do
has a
that?
position
Oh,
in-
she has that.
and,
oh, I thought it was another thing another hat that you wear.
And she got to be a
she did.
minister
Oh.
and as an ordained minister in Macon, Georgia, right now.
Oh, that's great.
And she just recently had her second baby.
Wow. So she's another survivor in the family.
Her
Yeah.
first baby was a boy baby called Francis, and he's normal. And we was afraid because of her condition that might not work out. And then she just now had a baby girl, and very normal.
Oh, great.
You have to show her the picture, Joanne.
Yeah, that's
And,
great.
So that's been her biggest concern is Cassandra's health, but she's a fighter.
So do you consider yourself a worrier, or are you
Oh yeah,
like,
I'm a big worrier.
you're a worrier and
Oh,
you're
yes,
101? Like, how do you survive? So they always say stress kills, but obviously not.
My doctors tell me that I have high anxiety,
Oh, really?
almost suicidal anxiety.
Wow.
Yeah,
And you just can overcome it. And
Yeah, you just
somehow
get to
you
work
just
on it.
wake up the next day and go at it.
yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Did you have anything else you wanted to add about your wild life?
I think it's been really interesting. I want you to be sure to see the picture of that
I
airplane. A
will. I'll take a picture
1916
of that.
airplane.
I'll be sure to do that.
I wanted to tell you about
Oh, yes.
this special event. Olga Kern that I met. Incidentally, I wanted to tell you too about Rachmaninoff.
Oh,
Sergei
yes.
Rachmaninoff gave a concert in February of 1937, and I got to attend it.
Wow.
And the story about this is, this was in Lawrence, Kansas, and my brother Bob was in school at Lawrence, Kansas University, and I was in school at Kansas State in Manhattan, Kansas, about 70 miles, and my roommate was from St. Francis, and he had a motorcycle.
Oh.
And my roommate, I talked him into taking me in February to this concert. Bob had tickets for it. And the reason I was interested in Rachmaninoff was I'd taken piano lessons and played the Rachmaninoff's Prelude and C-sharp minor and knew about it. And I was so enthralled with Rachmaninoff, the master pianist and composer. And here I had a chance to hear him. I was 20 years old, but I got to go because my roommate had a motorcycle in February, and we rode down to Lawrence, and got to hear
Gosh.
Sergei himself. And when he come on the stage, it's just amazing. His presence was just a tremendous presence,
Wow.
and of course his technique is amazing. And now, recent years, we've got to hear Olga Kern. She grew up in Russia, and at the age of 20, she won the Clyburn contest in Texas, and she's been in the Boulder now 3 years in a row, and Joanne's managed to get tickets to her every year. And the thing is, I had the original of this. This is a copy. I had the original,
brochure, yeah.
and I got Joanne to see if she'd be interested in having that original from Sergei Rachmaninoff. And of course she was. And
Yes.
so we got to go on stage and present her that original
Oh, you gave her your copy.
my copy.
Oh my gosh.
That's all I have left of my copy.
Oh, and you just
But
Xerox.
she had the
what
original.
I'm seeing here is the Xerox
she's got
copy
the original
of
copy,
the concert.
and she gave me she signed
program.
gave me a happy
And
birthday,
she gave
signed
you a
it,
beautiful poster.
and then these pictures,
Oh,
John.
isn't that so nice? Oh yeah,
I had my
beautiful
pictures taken with her.
Look at
this was in the
that.
100, and this is the 101.
Oh my gosh, you don't look a day over 85.
And that's been a big thrill to have to meet Olga Kern.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, that's really one of the big things in my life.
So do you still look forward to things like that? Do you set up, like concerts and things that, so you have things to look forward to, right?
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
have, your calendar gets filled up.
Yes, we enjoy the piano concerts and orchestra concerts.
Do you go to CU games anymore? Are you going to go this
We
fall?
went to a lot of them.
Yeah?
Anymore, the only one I've been going to lately is Olga's.
Yeah. Well,
Olga's
that's
concert.
great. Well, great. Well, thank you. It was so nice to meet you, and thank you for telling us about your wild side.
Oh, you bet.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Production and musical score of The Wild Side by Kelly Lindau. Visit my website at susielindow.com. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram, or tweet me about the show at Susie Lindau, and I'll follow you back. If you enjoyed The Wild Side, be sure to tell your friends, family, or anyone who will listen. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Thanks so much for listening.